So, Hare Krishna to all the devotees who have joined us today for a continuation of the Bhagavad Gita chapters. Today we'll do a quick review of chapter 15. It's an interesting chapter. And then we'll move on to chapter 16. So chapter 15 was titled Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person, Purushottama. And we began with the analogy of an upside-down banyan tree. The word used for banyan tree in Sanskrit is Ashwatha. And one of the meanings of Ashwatha is that which will not be here tomorrow. Essentially saying that which is temporary. Of course, if you think of a banyan tree, you don't think it is temporary. It probably has a longer lifespan than us on this planet. It seems to be very strong, sturdy, well-established, widespread. But Krishna is saying that the real banyan tree is actually in the spiritual world, meaning it's just an allegory that Krishna is using. Does not mean that an actual banyan tree is actually the entire shapes and size of the spiritual universe. It is just that our attachment to the reflection of the spiritual world, something that is temporary, is so strong that Krishna understands that it is going to be so hard for us to break this attachment to the material world. Therefore, he is using the analogy of the banyan tree. And we looked at, the difference between a home and a hotel. In a hotel, no matter how convenient it may be, of course, just like we said, Sattvagun, Rajagun, and the Tamagun are all like chains on your legs. It doesn't matter whether the chain is made of gold, silver, or, bronze. It does not matter. The fact is that we are still chained. Similarly, even in a hotel, some of us may be in 5-star hotels, some of us may be dormitories. I'm talking about the quality of life that we individually experience in this particular human form. No matter how elaborate and how convenient different hotels may be, still, if somebody said, we're in this beautiful hotel room, let's start decorating it, let's start investing in it, let's change the decor, people would think you're mad, because nobody goes into a hotel thinking that it is theirs, thinking that they're going to stay there forever, and thinking that they should make all kinds of arrangements in this hotel to make themselves far more comfortable than what the hotel already offers them. Of course, this hotel, as Krishna describes, is Dukkhalaya Shashvatam. It is temporary and it is meant to cause you a lot of distress. So certainly it does not make any sense for any one of us to invest time and effort into making some very elaborate arrangements to stay here permanently, even though we know that we have to depart at some point. So the analogy that Krishna is using is to tell us that this attachment to this body, to this family, to this country, to this earth, it's so strong, even though it is so temporary, that we have to use knowledge. And knowledge here means understanding that your true identity is that you are a spirit soul, and detachment. So Krishna says, cut down this strong attachment that you have to this body, to this I, me, and mine, with knowledge and detachment. So you have to cut it off from the root, because the reflection is not real. So Krishna is reminding us that everything that happens in this material world is the exact opposite of what's happening in the spiritual world. So everything is therefore upside down. Imagine if you were to stand on your head for long periods of time. It is certainly an unnatural position to be in, and it's an uncomfortable position to be in. Therefore, the discomfort that Krishna is giving us in the material world is actually a good thing, because he's reminding you over and over again that you don't belong here. You are not a resident. You should not try to make this temporary body, this temporary environment as your permanent destination, because this is not your destination. No. The real thing exists in the spiritual world. Krishna then briefly talks about transmigration, how on and on, over and over again, we take different types of bodies, we go up the species, down the species, we enjoy ourselves, we get completely distressed. And all of this is triggered by our desires. And it's the nature of the desire, whether it is positive or negative, that causes you to take different types of bodies. So much so, in one of the shlokas, Krishna says that, we may take on different bodies. We may have different types of ears, eyes, tongue, nose, depending on whether in your human form or an insect form or an animal form or an aquatic form. And in this way, with all of these different senses and body parts, we try to enjoy ourselves in this world. The reason we have to take birth again and again is because of our residual desires, which is at the time of death, you have some more desires. Unfulfilled desires will cause you to take birth again. Similarly, if you have accumulated a lot of karmic reactions, whether it is punya or papa, again, you will have to take birth again. And with it, whatever little spirituality that you practice, that also you will take with you. Then under the supervision of Krishna, Krishna decides what is the next type of body you're going to have, how wealthy you're going to be, how beautiful you're going to be, how educated you're going to be, what kind of family you're going to be born in, human species, non-human species. Then under the supervision of Krishna, Prakriti arranges the next body for you. Now, recently we did the Kunti Stuti in the Bhagavatam class in the morning sessions, where we were learning to not just recite Kunti Devi's Stutis when the Lord is getting ready to leave Hastinapur. She offers her glorifications and prayers to Lord Krishna. And in one of the shlokas, she actually tells the Lord, my dear Lord, it is easy to approach you only if that person is materially exhausted. Because Kunti Maharani is saying, if you have great parentage, great opulence, if you have great education, you have wonderful beauty and countenance, then you are not dependent on Krishna. So Kunti Maharani is saying, only when you're deeply exhausted with everything, materially exhausted, meaning you understand that this wealth is nothing, this body is nothing, you come to the recognition that everything is temporary. She says, only those who have come to this recognition that all of what we are doing is so much effort into something that is going to dissipate over a period of time. So she says, only those who are materially exhausted can approach you. And therefore, Mother Kunti actually prays to the Lord that he should give her more and more suffering, because at least in that suffering, she will be able to remember him. Now she feels that the suffering has ended because the Pandavas have been victorious and Yudhishthir Maharaj is about to ascend the throne. And here she has Krishna getting ready to leave because everything is resolved now. The fight is over. The conclusion is there. And she feels, well, now I don't have an opportunity to think of you. So therefore, as long as you are sending us troubles, because the Pandavas struggle so much, as long as that was being experienced, she says it was easy for me to remember. But now that everything has been taken care of you by your causeless mercy, I'm afraid that I'm going to forget you. And because I don't want to forget you, then you please send trouble my way, because that's the only way I feel that I will be able to remember. Krishna also talks about how he is maintaining our body, our soul, our mind, everything. That means Krishna is always protecting and maintaining us, irrespective of whether we are serving him or not. That can only come from a place of love. Krishna loves us so much that he never abandons us. Then we came to the concluding verses where Krishna talks about the Trishloki Gita, beginning with two sets of Jivatmas, Kshara and Akshara. Kshara means fallible, they make mistakes. Akshara means infallible. Krishna also tells us where these two different types of personalities live. The fallible ones are residing in the material world, and the infallible ones are happily enjoying themselves with Krishna and the spiritual world. And beyond these two categories of people, Krishna says there is that other superior entity called the Paramatma. And beyond the Paramatma, Krishna talks about he himself being there as Bhagavan Shri Krishna. So yes, we have so many dreams as we go through our life. When we are young, we dream. When we are in a teenage years, we dream. When we get married, we dream. And we continue to dream. So while the world is teaching you, schools are teaching you, universities are teaching you, yes, pursue your dream. That is not what the Gita is teaching you. Gita is teaching you, discover your reality first. Understand who you are. You are eternal spirit soul. You are not this body. Therefore, your goal itself, your vision itself, your purpose itself, everything will change based on this. So how is chapter 16 connected to chapter 15? That is what we're going to see. So chapter 15, the single word summary for chapter 15 was GPS, right? That Krishna is giving you a path by which you can return to the spiritual world. So chapter 16 is titled Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, meaning the divine nature and the demoniac nature that exists in this material world. Essentially, if you look at the banyan tree, Krishna is saying, if you cultivate good qualities, divine qualities, then you will go towards the root of the banyan tree until it touches and takes you into the spiritual world. Right? Remember, we are living in the upside down banyan tree because we are caught up in Maya, the illusion. If you cultivate your demoniac qualities, you will go further away from the root and further to the top of that upside down banyan tree. Which means the further away you are from the root, the further away you are from Krishna. So in this world, it is said that as per yugas, people have different qualities, but they may not have been in the same person. So for example, in Satya Yuga, it is said the divine lived in one planet, the demoniacs lived in another planet. So they were separated by planets. Of course, great demons also had the capability of interplanetary travel. And therefore, demons used to go to the place where the Devatas were living and trouble them, like Indra and Brahma, etc. But in Satya Yuga, they were living on different planets altogether. In Treta Yuga, they were living in the same planet, but they were not in the same family. So the demoniac was a different set of family and the divine was a different set of family. But in Dwapar Yuga, they ended up in the same family. So you see Duryodhana and his brothers, and then you see Pandavas and Draupadi. So in Dwapar Yuga, the divine and demoniac came into the same family. In Kali Yuga, unfortunately, the divine and demoniac exist in each one of us. So all of us carry some amount of divine qualities and some amount of demoniac qualities. So therefore, Krishna will talk about the divine and demoniac qualities. The focus of this chapter is more on the demoniac nature that we should try to avoid. And Krishna will say, ultimately, we all have a choice. We can cultivate the divine in us or we can cultivate the demoniac in us. Most of us, because we are not conscious of our own nature, we tend not to pay attention to it. So everything is on auto mode. Auto mode means the way we were born and the way we have acted in our life, we continue to behave in that same fashion. We don't make significant changes because we don't feel the need, we don't feel compelled. So Krishna is identifying the 26 divine qualities that a human being can possess, beginning with fearlessness, like Prahlad. No matter what his father did to torture him, he never became fearful. He had such faith in the Lord. So much faith that when Hiranyakashipu said, is your Vishnu here in this pillar? Is he there in that pillar? And so Vishnu was ready to come out of whichever pillar Prahlad pointed to. So Prahlad had this fearlessness, and that is a core symptom of a devotee, is that he does not have fear because he has so much faith in Krishna that he knows Krishna will protect him no matter what. So we look very quickly at the other qualities, the purification of one's existence. So to have qualities like the Devata, you should be cultivating spiritual wisdom. You should give in charity. You should exercise self-control. You should be performing sacrifices. You should be studying the Vedas. Krishna says we should live an austere life and a very simple life. The quality of a divine human being is that they lead a simple life. They don't complicate their lives. Non-violence. And Prabhupada has a wonderful definition of non-violence. Non-violence means not giving, non-violence, practicing non-violence means giving Krishna consciousness to others is practicing non-violence. If you're not getting other jivatmas connected back to Krishna, then you are practicing violence. I remember when I first read that definition, when I came to this chapter and I was reading Prabhupada's purport for the first time, I was in shock. I had never heard of such a definition of non-violence. How is it that non-violence means spreading Krishna consciousness? That is actually true non-violence. Everything else is violence. As a matter of fact, Prabhupada says our entire education system is like a slaughterhouse. We are sending our children to the slaughterhouse for their humanity to be destroyed so that they act like machines, just chasing money, chasing success. There's no concept of values in our education system anymore, the modern day education system. So non-violence, simplicity, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault finding. There is a nice pastime about this. One day a king was doing annadan. So he had organized for some nice prasadam feast that he was serving to the citizens of his nation. It's certainly considered one of the most noble deeds is to serve others prasadam. Cook prasadam and serve it. Fund it and serve it. So anyway, this king was serving prasadam and had organized for a nice prasadam feast. It so just happened that an eagle was flying overhead with a dead snake in its mouth. And unfortunately, the snake fell into one of the drums of prasadam, and a brahmana happened to eat it, that prasadam that was contaminated with the snake's poison, and he lost his life. Now, our scriptures say Brahma Hatya is the worst kind of Hatya, killing a Brahmana, that there is actually no atonement for it at all. Of course, when we recite the Tulsi Maharani's prayers, it certainly says if anybody circumambulates Tulsi Maharani with a great deal of faith and devotion, even if you commit the greatest sin of Brahma Hatya, it will be forgiven, it will be negated. But anyway, so the question was, who is responsible for the Brahmana's death? Is it the snake? Because it was the poison from the snake that killed the Brahmana. Well, it can't be the snake because the snake was already dead. Should the blame of doing Brahma Hatya go to the eagle? No, because the eagle is just doing what it is supposed to do. It is seeking its prey, killing it, and, surviving off of its natural inclination to kill other animals. So certainly the fault of doing Brahma Hatya cannot be given to the snake or to the eagle. What about the king? So after all, it's the king who organized the feast. Isn't he in some way responsible for the killing of the Brahmana? Even though if it was not a willful killing, certainly the Brahmana was killed because of his desire to do another. So Chitragupta was thinking, well, I've eliminated the snake, I've eliminated the eagle. I have to right now put this file as work in progress because the king is not at fault. He was just trying to do a good deed. Therefore, this is an accidental death. But I will keep the file open in case some additional information comes to light. So Chitragupta was waiting because any bad deed that happens, somebody has to take accountability. Just like any good deed that is done, someone takes credit for it. So he waited, and one day a set of people were visiting the kingdom and they wanted to know where the palace was. So one old lady was in the kingdom and they approached her. And she said, "The palace? You're trying to visit the king? Oh, that king who killed that Brahmana? Yes, that is the way to that palace where the king resides." So Chitragupta thought, I have found the person who's responsible for that Brahmana's death. So the punishment will go to the old lady. So the risk of finding fault with others, even when they may have not done anything wrong, but if you have magnified, even if they've done something wrong, if you have unnecessarily exaggerated or magnified the other person's fault, then this is the risk. So you have to, so Krishna is saying, don't run around trying to find fault with others because you will take the blame. So similarly, there was a young man who had a habit of criticizing others, fairly or unfairly, does not matter. But all day he spent his time criticizing others. And death came knocking on his door. And he said, wait a minute, I'm so young, I have a long life to live. How can you take me away so soon? There's still so much more I need to do. So Yamaraj said, see, you've done enough criticism, now let's go. And the young man started begging forgiveness from Yamaraj, and he says, look, I will do whatever you say, but please allow me to continue to live. And Yamaraj said, the punishment for fault finding and so much criticism that you've heaped on others, especially criticism that is unfair, is for you to eat this huge mountain of insects To which immediately the young man said, how can I eat these insects? Come on, you have to do better than that. I certainly cannot eat this whole mountain of insects just so that I can live a longer life. So Yamaraj said, okay, fine. If you don't want to do that, then the next best punishment I'll give you is you take a glass of milk, sit under a toddy tree, and drink that milk. The first person who passes by you is going to make a comment that you're drunk and you're an alcoholic. The minute he criticizes you, all of the sins that you accumulated through your criticisms will immediately transfer to this man who criticized you. And in this way, you can lengthen your span of life. Sure enough, the young man did that. He took a glass of milk when he was sitting under a palm tree, drinking his milk. And somebody thought, oh, look at this useless young fellow, wasting his life getting drunk. And immediately, the karmic account of criticism shifted from this young man to that other man who criticized. So when it comes to fault finding, we should be very, very careful. It's best to avoid finding fault with others. 16 is compassion for all beings. Freedom from covetousness means you don't believe and don't accept that you own anything. You know that everything belongs to Krishna, and therefore everything is used in the service of Krishna and nothing belongs to you. So that is actually what it means when it says freedom from covetousness. Then gentleness, modesty, steady determination. See, this is an important aspect, steady determination. There'll be so many ups and downs in life. And some of you are wondering what to do when your sadhana goes up and down, when your Krishna consciousness goes up, down, sideways. Well, here is your answer. Krishna is telling you to be determined, to be steady in your determination. You have to continue to strive to do what you can, the best you can. Vigor, you could say, is enthusiasm, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, freedom from envy, and freedom from passion for honor. Some of us want to be honored by others. If we're not honored or if we're not accepted, if we're not recognized, we get jealous and we get upset. So the question now is, in 3 shlokas, Krishna has described 26 divine qualities. The rest of the chapter is going to focus on demoniac qualities. So how do you cultivate these divine qualities? It is very simple. First of all, you need to take the association of devotees. Because when you come in contact with virtuous people, you yourself, even if you think you're not virtuous, you will become virtuous. I was actually listening to His Holiness Swami Keshav Swami Maharaj, where he was giving pravachan in Switzerland on Uddhava Gita. It's a wonderful young preacher. And he was talking about how there is a rule that is called the 6th rule. The rule says that if you want to acquire good qualities, you need to find 5 people who have good qualities and spend a lot of time with them. If you want to be a good sportsman, find 5 good sports people and you will be the 6th person getting to that level. Because when 5 people set the standard for you, it's very difficult for you to ignore it. So it will be easier for you to adopt it and become like them. Of course, this works positively. This also works negatively. If you want to become a drunkard, you just need to hang out with other people who drink, and pretty soon you will start drinking. So one of the devotees who was attending this class asked this question: how do we develop divine qualities? And the question came in the context of Maharaj beautifully explaining the stages of bhakti. The stages of bhakti are as follows. Of course, this is described by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion. And Prabhupada has a summary book called the Nectar of Devotion. The actual Nectar of Devotion has more than 2,000 verses, but Prabhupada's summary book has it very, very condensed. So Maharaj was talking about the 4 stages of bhakti. It begins with casual bhakti, to committed bhakti, to purified bhakti, and passionate bhakti. Casual bhakti is whenever you feel like it, you will do something spiritual. That's casualness, which means there is no consistency in what you practice. This is what in Nectar of Devotion is called Samanya Bhakti. Then committed bhakti means you are practicing your sadhana regularly. So somebody asked Maharaj, how do you get from casual bhakti to committed bhakti? If you want to move from casual bhakti to committed bhakti, the ingredient that you have to add is knowledge or jnana, tattva. So with knowledge, you will then start practicing sadhana bhakti. So that is committed bhakti. You will do a certain set of things every day because you have received adequate knowledge and realization for you to continue your practice. Okay, so how do you get from committed bhakti to purified bhakti? Tivrena bhakti yogena, which means uninterrupted, unmotivated love for Krishna. In the sense that your sadhana is so intense that you automatically become purified. You are considered a pure devotee at that time. Okay, so why is there a difference between pure devotion and passionate devotion? Well, even in pure devotion, you are following sadhana. In passionate devotion, it is spontaneous love for Krishna. So the question is, so how do you move from pure devotion to spontaneous devotion? For that, you need to be introduced to Rajabhumi pastimes of Lord Krishna, to the gopis, and therefore the Nectar of Devotion says you have to follow in the footsteps of one of the Vrajavasis for you to reach that stage of spontaneous love for Krishna. And Maharaj explained the best Vrajavasi example that we have is our own Srila Prabhupada. Because many times Prabhupada has said that Vrindavan is his home. And everywhere he goes, whether he's in the US or UK, his mind is always in Vrindavan. So we should simply follow in the footsteps of the greatest Vrajavasi in modern day times in Kali Yuga, which is Srila Prabhupada. Of course, there are many other great Goswamis who resided in Rajabhumi as well, like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. So we need to follow in their footsteps. So the first aspect of cultivating divine qualities is you need to surround yourself with devotees. Then it's very difficult to give up your path because the devotees themselves will encourage you, support you when you're having hiccups in your sadhana. So that is the A part of it, association. The B part of it is to study the books. Which books? The scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, etc. The C part is to chant the holy names of the Lord continuously. Continuously. Yes, Prabhupada has said minimum 16 rounds we should chant. But it is better to chant continuously. Then your sins are removed and then the mind will come under our control. Mind will be completely regulated. So A, B, C, D, there are 2 elements to D. One is worshipping Krishna, so deity worship. The other is diet, changing your diet. So the mind will be purified with clear thoughts and the senses will be controlled when you only engage in ordering prasadam. So from here on, Krishna is going to talk about demoniac qualities. So if the divine qualities are 26, then the demoniac qualities are only 6. Because from the 6, you have a huge mashup of other qualities that comes up. So what are the demoniac qualities that Krishna is saying? Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and then ignorance. How does all of these qualities develop? To develop the divine qualities, we went through ABCD. Okay, how do demoniac qualities also develop? Actually, both qualities are developing through nature, nurture, and culture. One is what are you born with? Because of your past karmic reactions and your desires, there are certain things, attitudes, etc., you are born with. Then the second element is after birth. What is it that you are nurturing and cultivating? The good side or the bad side? And then the sixth one is who are you hanging out with, and therefore the culture also influences your qualities. So pride, anger, arrogance, harshness, conceit, and ignorance, Krishna is saying these 6 are our demoniac qualities. So the chapter title comes from the shloka. Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya Nibandhaya Surimata Ma Shuchas Sampadam Daivim Abhijatosi Pandava. The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demoniac qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities. So once Krishna has described the demoniac qualities, Arjuna is having a doubt. Could it be? Am I an Asura or am I a Deva? So Krishna is saying, don't worry. I put you in the bracket of divine people. So what is the benefit of developing divine qualities? Krishna says, if you develop these good qualities, then it becomes a good foundation for moksha. He's not telling you definitely you will get moksha. He's just saying you have to cultivate these good qualities. Ultimately, it will lead you to the spiritual path and then you will get moksha. But if you cultivate demoniac qualities, then Krishna says it's going to tie you down in this material world, inside that upside down banyan tree. You will go further and further away from Krishna. That's what Krishna is saying. And from here on out, Krishna is going to talk about the demoniac nature. What is the feature of these demoniac people? How does this demoniac tendencies affect them? Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana viduras asuraha na shaucham na pichacharaha na satyam teshu vidyate. Those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. So Krishna is saying, if you are influenced by these 6 bad qualities, then the more those bad qualities increase in you, the more your discriminatory powers will be lost. In the sense, you will no longer know what is right or wrong. Excuse me, because you will be under so much illusion. One more thing Krishna is adding is neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. Cleanliness is not just external, it is also internal cleanliness, which is your mind and your intelligence. So such kind of people, even though they may be very powerful, nevertheless, they are on the wrong side of Krishna. So in this regard, it's important for us to understand what are the 4 pillars of dharma. Because each one of us is responsible for upholding, maintaining, practicing these dharmic principles, because if we don't practice it, it will not exist anymore. So in order for truthfulness to prevail, there should be no gambling Because in gambling, cheating is involved. You're trying to skirt the system, so to speak. So only if gambling is banned in all its forms and shapes, then truthfulness will actually survive. As more gambling increases in society, truthfulness also will reduce. Compassion, daya. Well, if we indiscriminately keep killing other animals to satisfy our taste buds, and the more animals are killed, the less compassion there will be. Just yesterday, I just saw one headline that said a couple of days ago in Canada, somebody was having a heart attack, and not a single person stopped to help that man who had fallen on the sidewalk. So, compassion reduces when there is unrestricted meat eating. Then, if you want to observe austerity, or if austerity, which means all of us have to observe some amount of austerity because that's just a matter of life. For that, we should avoid alcohol. The more people are engaged in drinking alcohol, the more they will find it difficult to observe basic austerities. Tapaha will become very difficult for them. And then cleanliness will reduce as long as there is unrestricted sexual contact between men and women or boys and girls, especially outside of marriage. So this leads to more and more uncleanliness. That means if we want to uphold these four pillars of dharma, if we value satyam, if we value compassion, if we understand the need for austerity, and if we understand the necessity for internal and external cleanliness, then we will avoid these four things. We will not consume meat, we will not gamble, we will not engage in taking intoxicants, and we will not engage in extramarital affairs or outside of marriage sexual relations. So this, by the way, is not concocted. It is actually mentioned in the scripture. So if at all you see a lot of problems surrounding us, you can always refer back to what is happening with the four pillars of dharma. These four pillars of dharma are directly related to our ability to control our senses. So if we don't regulate our senses, we will violate the four pillars of dharma. And this dharma will get eroded, which is what is happening in Kali Yuga. There is unrestricted killing of animals. Government themselves are running alcohol shops. People are no longer interested in leading a dharmic married life. They are having relationships even way before and at a very young age also. And of course, gambling is also promoted by governments. So how can you expect people to behave themselves in society? So as Prabhupada says, there will only be rascals all around. The most abominable kind of human beings will be produced in an environment like this. So essentially, Krishna is saying, those who have a predominance of demoniac nature, they don't know what is right or wrong. That means they have not followed scriptures. They are very selfish. They engage in improper behavior. They are not very truthful. There is no cleanliness. They do not follow social ethics or morals. A couple of days ago, I was talking to one of the devotees who works in the temple. And because this is Kartik month, many of us try to come to the temple during Mangala Arati because it's a wonderful way to start your day by being in the temple by 4:15 a.m., 4:30 a.m. And she said she normally comes by her scooter and she brings her two young girls with her. And she said one of the days, two young boys who were also on the scooter started chasing her. And her main concern was for her two young daughters. And she said somehow she sped up on her bike and entered the temple. And then she realized, oh, it is too risky for me to take my scooter early in the morning, especially with my children, because there are unsavory characters hanging around that early in the morning who are ready to do all kinds of mischief. So she decided, okay, if I have to come for Mangala Arati, next time I have to take a taxi. I can't risk coming on the bike anymore. So you see, this is the situation even in a city like Bangalore, where apparently only educated people live. So improper behavior abounds because people are drinking, people are eating meat, people are doing all kinds of nonsense activities. So therefore, social ethics and morals will degrade if we continue to allow these four pillars of dharma to be violated. Krishna continues, they believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. So this is what happens. You just degrade as a human being so much so, you'll come to the point where you're willing to commit illegal acts just so you can procure money, just so you can satisfy your lusty desires. Who is saying this? Krishna is saying this in Bhagavad Gita. Then, bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blaspheme against the real religion. So Krishna is warning, if this continues, what will happen? They will one day challenge Krishna himself. Krishna is saying, I myself am present in their bodies. I am present in others' bodies, but they will become envious of me. Like Hiranyakashipu was asking, where is God? Where is God? So foolish, he did not know God was within him, even though he himself spoke the Gita to the wives of Hiranyaksha. When Hiranyaksha died at the hands of Varahadev, still he was searching for God outside, when God is present within him. So this is the warning that Krishna is giving us. What will happen ultimately? You will begin to challenge God. So how do you fix this? How do you identify that you are diseased? Well, somebody has to diagnose that you are diseased. An expert diagnoses you and tells you also what is the cure for that disease. So Krishna has identified the disease. Of course, he is going to give the cure also. Yes, the cure is Krishna. So essentially, Krishna is saying we all have a choice. He is not interfering with your individual freedom. You all have limited amount of freedom, but still he never takes away this freedom from you. Trividham narakasyedam dwaram nashanam atmanah kamah krodhastata lobah tasmat etatrayam tyajet. There are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. Degradation of the soul means the soul is Satchidananda, so why is Krishna saying the soul is degraded? No, the soul is not being degraded. The soul is covered with contaminated consciousness, and because of that consciousness being contaminated, the soul has to degrade to animal species, degrade to Patala Loka, and go suffer there. But What is leading us to this hell? Three things. Kama, Krodha, Lobha. So Krishna is saying if you're a sane person, you will give these three things up. Of course, we all know this is easier said than done. How easy it is to give up these three. Well, it is easy over a period of time. If you are steady in your sadhana and you're fixed up. Krishna is saying, Yashastra utsrijya vartate kamakaradaha nasa siddhim avapnoti nasukham naparam gatim. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme destination. Na siddhim, meaning no perfection. Na sukham, no happiness. Na parangatim, forget him getting the spiritual world. He'll never enter there. So who are these demons? Finally, those who do not follow the scriptures. Those who make up their own rules, regulations, and do whatever they want. Contrary to the instruction of Krishna. So essentially, Krishna is saying you have an opportunity to choose. So choose to follow the Shastras. Don't act according to your own whim. Because if you do, it will lead to more and more sorrow, more and more suffering, and more downfall. So those who want to cultivate good qualities, they will follow the Shastra because Shastra will guide you to the path of self-realization. Atma Jnana, Atma Tattva. And when you follow the path of the Shastras, then you can escape the gates of hell and ultimately you can achieve the supreme good. Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Vyavasthitau Jnatva Shastra Vidhanoktam Karma Kartum Eharhasi. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Krishna has already told us in 3rd chapter that our duty is to undertake sacrifices for the pleasure of Vishnu. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. Gradually be elevated. So if you follow the Vedic scriptures, then you are on the right path. And gradually you will come to the point where you can get elevated to the spiritual world. So let's talk about some interesting pastimes. Once Sita Devi and Lord Ram were in the forest and she was asking the Lord, why are you still carrying your bow and arrow around? You're not a king anymore. Why do you really need it in the forest? And the Lord said, I am born into a Kshatriya family. It's my nature to protect. Even if I don't have human beings to protect in the forests, the animals, insects, beasts, they are also still my citizens. So just because I've come to the forest doesn't mean I've become a sannyasi. I'm still very much a Kshatriya. So Sita Devi at that time narrates a story to Lord Ram of a Brahmana who had done so many pious deeds that he was about to dislodge Indra from his post and take over that post. After he gives up this body, his next post would have been the post of Indra. So Indra was very worried. He thought, I have to figure out how to stop this Brahmana from achieving my post. Let me see what I can do. So Indra comes there in disguise. He tells the Brahmana, I'm a Kshatriya. I have some important errand to run. Can you please take care of the sword for me? And so Indra gives him this beautiful, shiny, long, rapier-like sword. And the Brahmana is a Brahmana. He is not interested in the sword. What is he going to do with it? So he said, fine. The Brahmanas are trusted. You can give anything to a Brahmana, he will return it to you intact. That was the amount of trust that was that was there in Brahmanas. So anyway, the Brahmana kept the sword in one corner of his hut. And then slowly, after a few days, he could not resist the shine and the beauty of that sword. He thought, oh, let me just pick it up and see how it feels. Must be interesting to be a Kshatriya. That's what the Brahmana was thinking. And pretty soon he became very attached to the sword and started practicing moves with the sword. So Indra was quite successful in his mission. All he had to do was leave one object, and the Brahmana got tempted and he lost his Brahmanical nature, which means from Sattvagun he came to Rajagun. And therefore, he lost whatever credits he had to take on that next role of Indra. So he couldn't do it. When Ravana was killed, Hanuman goes to see Sita Devi, and he's so furious that his worshipable mother Sita was tortured for a year by these Rakshashis in this Ashoka Vatika. So he asks Sita Devi, with your permission, I'd like to punish them. So Sita Devi says, see, they are just being who they are. You are a wonderful devotee and you're a, exalted status as a servant of Lord Ram. Why would you want to cheapen yourself by punishing women? And at that time, she narrates a story to Hanuman to prove the point that one should never change one's nature, no matter how tempting it may be, given certain circumstances. So she talks about how a hunter had entered a forest on a hunting trip, and a tiger happened to chase him. And out of fear of the tiger, he dropped his weapons. He did not, try to kill the tiger. Out of fear, he climbed a tree. And on that same tree was a bear. So here, the hunter and the bear are on the tree, and the tiger is circling the tree. And the tiger told the bear, see, this human being, he's an invader. He has no business being in the forest. The forest is meant for our animals. This is our natural habitat. Certainly, this forest is not a natural habitat for a hunter. So why don't you just kick him down? We'll have him as a meal and we'll go our own sweet ways. To which the bear responded, see, this tree is like my house. And this human being has come under my shelter. Atiti Devo Bhava. So I cannot push him down. He's taken my shelter, so my duty is to make sure that I protect him. After a little while, the bear fell asleep. And the tiger was still roaming around the base of the tree. And the tiger looked at the hunter and said, see, why don't you just knock that bear down? I will be happy because I would have had a full meal and you can escape. So the hunter thought, yeah, this sounds like a brilliant idea. So the hunter dislodges the bear from the branch. But the bear does not fall on the ground. It falls onto another branch below it, and it wakes up as per hitting that branch. And the tiger told the bear, see, you trusted this hunter. You should never trust human beings. They are so selfish. You had an opportunity to just drop him to me. We could have shared a nice meal together. At that time, the bear said, see, he is acting as per his nature. I'm not going to change my nature just because he has violated some principles that he should not have. So in this way, Sita Devi was explaining to Hanumanji that one should never give up one's good character, even if somebody may encourage you to do so for whatever reasons. We should be who we are. We should always try to inculcate, um, divine qualities in us. So in this way, Krishna is telling us the importance of cultivating good qualities. That is why we have classes every day. We have chanting sessions. We have reading sessions. We do kirtan. We do so many things so that there is every opportunity for every Jivatma to completely come, take advantage, and make progress on the spiritual path. So Vidura once gave a test to Duryodhana and Yudhishthira. Somehow or the other, one Brahmana was killed in the kingdom, and in that killing, 4 different varnas were involved. One Brahmana was involved in the killing, one Kshatriya, one Vaishya, and one Shudra. So Vidura called Duryodhana first and asked him, what would be your judgment of these 4 people? What should be their punishment? Because all 4 of them were engaged in killing a Brahman. So Duryodhana calls all 4 of them and asks them, were you engaged in the killing of this Brahmana? And all 4 of them confessed that yes, they indeed were involved in killing the Brahmana. And Duryodhana went and told Vidura all 4 of them should get death penalty. Because after all 4 of them were involved in killing. If you're involved in killing, then the right punishment is death penalty. Because it stops the cycle of violence. So then Vidura asks Yudhishthira, how would you deal with the situation? So Yudhishthira said, let me meet the 4 people. And the first thing Yudhishthira does is asks them their varna. So he starts with the Shudra and he says the Shudra should be released. Because he didn't commit any sin. Vidura asked why? Because if a Shudra is simply following the instruction of the master, then he is not held accountable. It is the master that is supposed to be held accountable. So the Shudra, Yudhishthira said, should be released. Okay, what about the Vaishya? Well, the Vaishya should be jailed, fined, and whipped. But he should not get the death penalty. So he will escape with just a punishment and a fine. What about the Brahmana? Vidura asked. Well, it's the Brahmana who should get the death penalty. Now, we just talked about Brahma Hatya. But if a Brahmana is engaged in acts that are not meant for Brahmanas to commit, Brahmanas are not supposed to kill. So Yudhishthira said he should get the most severe punishment because Brahmanas are considered to be the heads of society. They set the standards for all to follow. So if they themselves fall and do whatever they want, including getting engaged in acts of killing, then they should get the severe punishment. They should not escape simply because, they are considered a Brahmin. They should still pay the price. So in this way, we can understand that there are so many nuances to our qualities, right? We think, so what if we get angry? It's a natural human emotion. Lust is a natural human emotion. Greed is a natural emotion. Well, it is natural if it is used in Krishna's service. It is terribly unnatural if it is used in your own service. So, anger and greed can be used in serving Krishna. Like Hanuman used his anger to set fire to Lanka. Greed can also be used to engage in services that would please Krishna. So everything can be dovetailed into Krishna consciousness, except for one thing: envy. If you're envious, which is why Krishna says multiple times in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, because you're non-envious and because you're my good friend. Those who are not envious, Krishna says, understand me. So if you're envious of Krishna, then there's no place for you in the spiritual world. So anger is used in the spiritual world in the service of Krishna. So all the so-called negative qualities could be used in the service of Krishna, with the exception of envy. Of course, with envy comes conceit. So among all of those qualities, Prabhupada has said, if you are envious of Krishna, then there's no hope for you. You're lost. You'll have to stay in the material world. It's okay. We'll stop here. Any questions about this particular chapter? We can discuss now.